On my birthday, Corin Duan posted a photo with his female secretary, both of them wearing matching couple rings. Work partners are also life partners. I commented, a perfect match. Corin immediately called me, furiously accusing me of being out of my mind and not being able to take a joke. Before hanging up, he comforted the sobbing secretary in a soft voice. In the past, I would have rushed over in a hysterical fit, making a scene for everyone to laugh at. But this time, I felt calm, completely unbothered. Chapter 1. When Corin returned home, I was making breakfast. Yesterday was my birthday. He said he would come back to celebrate with me. So I left work early and prepared a whole table of dishes. But even by midnight, he never showed up. If it weren't for that photo, I would have kept waiting foolishly. When I brought the sandwich to the table, he asked, "Where's mine?" I was taken aback. "Didn't you eat?" I thought Christine would have made him breakfast, so I didn't prepare his portion. He glanced at my plate and sneered, "This trash isn't worth eating anyway." In the past, hearing this would have made me very upset, eager to argue. But now I simply nodded. "Yeah, you don't like it anyway." He stiffened, then tossed a paper bag at me. "I bought you a lipstick every time we fought." He would buy me a little something as a peace offering, knowing I couldn't stay mad at him for long and would eagerly take the opportunity to reconcile. I didn't look up and responded dismissively. "Thanks," not getting the reaction he wanted. He snorted and walked towards the bathroom, complaining, "What are you wearing? You're too old for pink. Do you think you're Chris's age?" My hand paused. Did he forget that Christine and I were born in the same year while clearing the table? Corin's phone. Left on the table. Received a message from cute Chris, Corin. "Thank you for being with me yesterday. I feel much better." I glanced at it, then looked away, but was suddenly yanked back, slamming into the wall with a stifled groan. A furious shout followed. "Hannah, who the hell gave you permission to look at my phone?" I paled. Clutching my shoulder, it felt dislocated after replying to the message. Corin noticed my face, drenched in cold sweat, and frowned. "It was just a light bump. No need to overreact." Before I could speak, he impatiently added, Fine. I'm sorry. I'll drive you to work later, okay?" With my injury, I naturally didn't refuse. As soon as I got in the car, I noticed the little cat charm hanging in front. Corin looked uncomfortable. Chris liked it. Insisted on hanging it. I responded blandly, "Oh, it's nice." But his expression turned odd. "Your Lucky Charm was too tacky." So I took it down. I stared at him blankly. He could change it if he wanted. Why explain it to me? Suddenly, I remembered that the Lucky Charm was something I got after walking 2 hours up a mountain. And despite his disdain, I hung it in the car. If it were the old me, I probably would have immediately thrown out Christine's stuff. But now I didn't care about Corin anymore. So, what's the point of competing with her? Let's go. We're going to be late. Corin finally started the car. As soon as we took the high bridge, I realized the route was wrong. "This is the road to Starlight Tower." He clicked his tongue. "Can you not nag while I'm driving?" I calmly said, "My current office is at the San Io building." He grew irritated. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" I had told him, but he didn't remember. After exiting the ramp, his phone suddenly rang, a ringtone Christine liked. Pikachu. She said her cat was sick and needed to see a vet. Corin pulled over and told me to get out, since we're already on the wrong route. "You can find your own way to work." With that, he sped off during the morning rush. I couldn't get a cab and stood in the cold for over an hour, freezing to the bone. I ended up taking the day off and going to the orthopedic hospital. In the evening, Corin came home, checked the kitchen, and asked, "Where's the late-night snack?" Before coming home, he sent me a message. After all these years together, whenever he came home late, I would always prepare a late-night snack for him without needing to be reminded. I replied dismissively. I didn't check my phone. Corin paused for a moment, then handed me a box. "Didn't you say you wanted to buy a necklace last time?" Here I looked away from the TV screen and saw the familiar design. I politely said thank you, but I've lost interest in wearing necklaces lately. Earlier in the day, Christine had just posted a photo wearing this exact necklace, complaining that the design was too old-fashioned for her taste. Corin leaned in, trying to put the necklace around my neck.
Try it on anyway.
As his hand approached, it felt like it still carried the warmth from Christine's neck reflexively. I reached out to block him, and the delicate necklace snapped in an instant. Corin frowned. Are you still angry about having to go to work by yourself? I'm not angry. Corin sneered. Don't pretend you're not angry. Hannah, I know you too well. You've always been petty, unlike Chris, who's so magnanimous. I grew up reading people's expressions, sensitive by nature. Every time we argued, Corin would mock me for being petty when I broke down crying hysterically. He would calmly watch from the sidelines, amused. But this time, he was going to be disappointed. I simply turned my gaze away indifferently. You're right. After watching TV for a while longer, I got up to gather my things and head out. Corin taunted. What? Running away from home again? I calmly looked back at him. I'm going to work overtime. His expression froze awkwardly, as if he had more to say, but I had already opened the door. I spent the night playing a murder mystery game with my best friend Betty. Corin called, but I didn't pick up. Betty was shocked. You're not answering your husband's call. Everyone knew I loved Corin with all my heart. I would always answer his calls and texts immediately, but tonight I didn't feel like it at all. Instead, I dragged Betty to a bar. When I got home, the sun was just starting to rise. I went straight to the guest room to wash up. I had just fallen asleep when a loud bang woke me up.
You still know how to come back.
Ignoring Corin's sarcastic tone, I turned over and continued to sleep. In the past, I would always cater to him if he wanted to talk and stay away when he was annoyed. I was always the one wagging my tail and begging for attention. Now that I didn't respond, Corin stood there for a moment, then suddenly slammed the door hard and stormed out. Without anyone bothering me, I slept soundly. When I woke up, I found the house empty, and I felt extremely at ease. I leisurely made lunch for one, enjoyed it, and then went to meet the divorce lawyer that Betty had recommended. As soon as I arrived at the law firm, I saw a video posted by Corin's good friend Pablo. It was from his birthday party. In the middle of the video, Corin appeared with Christine sitting on his lap before the video could finish playing. It was deleted and Corin immediately called. Honey, don't get the wrong idea. Chris just lost her balance and I helped her out, I replied, confused. I didn't get the wrong idea. Then don't be mad. On Pablo's birthday you were working, so I was even more puzzled. Why would I be mad? Corin was momentarily speechless. After a long silence, he finally said, I'll pick you up tonight, and we'll go out for dinner. I was about to refuse when I heard the dial tone. He had already hung up. Corin came to pick me up, and we went directly to a Japanese restaurant. As soon as we walked in, the lobby manager bypassed me and respectfully addressed Corin behind me. Mr.
Duan.
You're here, Mrs. Duan is already waiting in the Sakura room. Corin's face changed instantly. Just as he was about to say something, Christine walked out, her eyes lighting up as she saw him. She ran over affectionately. Corin, darling. Then, as if just noticing me, oh, Sister Hani, you're here too. You haven't been to this place before, right? Corin, darling, loves their sea urchin salad. The lobby manager, sensing the tension, discreetly left. Chapter 5. I smiled faintly. What a coincidence. Corin's expression changed slightly as he walked over to grab my hand. But I turned away. Let's go. I'm hungry. Throughout the meal, Corin was distracted, frequently glancing at me, offering dishes and making introductions. I occasionally responded with a few perfunctory words. But eventually I sighed. Just focus on eating. Midway through the meal, the restaurant owner came over to chat, and I realized that this place was owned by Marco, one of Corin's friends. Marco apologized to me, saying that the waiter was inexperienced and had mistaken someone. I knew this was his way of explaining for Corin. His friends were very loyal, always covering for him. I smiled slightly. It's not a big deal. I appreciate you coming all the way here. Seeing that I didn't make a scene, Marco seemed a bit surprised. After a few more casual words, he left. After finishing the meal, I went to the restroom, and when I returned, I saw Corin holding a drunk Christine with a look of affection last year. I also got drunk at a work event. My colleague called Corin using my phone, but he refused to come and get me. After my colleague dropped me off at home, I kept entering the wrong passcode and in the early winter season, ended up sleeping in the hallway for the night. It wasn't until the next morning that I found out Corin had been home all along. I didn't want to let you in. I wanted you to learn a lesson. What kind of behavior is it for a woman to drink outside? Thinking of this, I went back to the private room, grabbed my bag, and left. As soon as I got home, Corin's call came through. Hannah, are you crazy? You left without saying a word. Do you know how long I waited for you? I calmly replied, Corin, let's get a divorce. This was the second time I had suggested divorce. The first time was on our wedding anniversary last year. Corin had taken Christine to the aquarium. We had a huge argument and he pushed me so hard that I miscarried. I thought I could use divorce to threaten him, but to my surprise, he readily agreed. So, I cried my heart out, begging him to forgive my rash words. But this time, I truly wanted out. Corin froze after a moment. He suddenly let out a cold laugh. You're pulling this trick again? Fine, I'll be right back. Let's see what other stunts you can pull. Half an hour later, he finally arrived home. I handed him the divorce papers I had prepared, but Corin recoiled sharply, letting the papers fall to the floor. Hey, you're really going all out with this act. He gave me a long, deep look. This game is getting old. This time, it's real. But he sneered disdainfully. Hannah, I know you too well. If you're going to play hard to get, at least use your brain. Do you even have one? With that, he turned and walked away for the next few days. He didn't come home, and I was perfectly content with that. Then one day, Marco called, frantic, saying Corin had been in a car accident and I needed to go to the hospital. I calmly said, I'm at work. I can't go if he really needs someone to take care of him, asked Christine. After all, he doesn't want to see me anyway. He'd probably be happier with Christine there. But when I got off work, I found the person who was supposed to be in the hospital sitting at home completely unharmed, though his expression was sour. When he saw me come in, he washed some fruit and brought it over to me every day after that, with a sour face. He made me breakfast and drove me to and from work. I couldn't stand it anymore. If you really don't enjoy eating with me, don't force yourself. You're ruining my appetite too. He froze for a moment, his face darkening even more, and said stiffly, I'm not forcing myself. Then he lowered his head to refresh his social media, probably waiting for me to post something about how he's being nice to me, like I used to, but I didn't post anything and even blocked him. The divorce papers sat on the coffee table, but Corin acted like he couldn't see them. I didn't push him. My lawyer said that patience is key at this stage. On the weekend, I went with Betty to welcome a friend back to town. As soon as I stepped onto the floor of the address she had sent, a surprised voice called out, Wife, are you here to see me? My appearance made Corin overjoyed. He smiled and put his arm around me. Everyone's here. Let's say hello, and then head home. Before I could refuse, he had already taken me to the private room. The door opened, and the voices inside became audible. Pablo and Marco were both addressing Christine, calling her little sister-in-law. The last time I heard this title was last year when Pablo asked Corin to take the little sister-in-law to his winery. On the way back, I joked with him. Being called little sister-in-law makes me feel like I'm so much younger. Corin, however, snapped at me irritably. How annoying.
How old are you?
Do you have any sense? Stop pretending to be young. You're crazy. As it turned out, they weren't even talking about me. Corin looked at me nervously. They're just joking around with the title. That's all. I was replying to a message and casually said, It's just a title. They can call whoever whatever they like. Seeing him holding me as we walked in, the expressions of the others varied, and Pablo quickly stood up. Sister-in-law, I forgot to invite you to my birthday party last time. You told me to take care of that. I smiled and responded with a few polite words before Corin pulled me down a sit. Christine, who had initially shown displeasure, now giggled sweetly.
Hanny.
Corin said you don't like these kinds of gatherings. I almost believed it, thinking you just didn't want to come. In the past, I wanted very much to integrate into Corin's life, but he rarely took me to gatherings with his friends, saying I wasn't familiar with them and that everyone would feel awkward with me around. But now, with the smoky, intense atmosphere in this private room, I really didn't want to be here. The others started egging us on to drink a traditional toasting drink together, and Christine eagerly handed me a glass as she wished. I noticed the watch and ring she was wearing. The designs were all too familiar, because Corin had them too. Betty sent me a message. "I'm here." My eyes lit up and I stood up, pulling Christine's hand amidst the surprised stares. I sat Christine down beside Corin, ignoring his panicked look, handed them both a glass of wine, and intertwined their hands with a smile full of satisfaction. Like an elder witnessing a wedding, I said you to drink the toasting wine and be together forever, living a good life. Seeing that they didn't move, I quickly explained. "Don't worry, I won't break you up. I also wish for lovers to end up together." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the three of us in shock, and I urged them.
Come on, drink.
With that, I walked out of the private room with light steps.
Hanny.
Corin chased after me, his expression frantic, his lips trembling. "Christine and I aren't what you think." I looked at him, puzzled. "What do you mean?" He stammered, struggling to explain. "There's nothing between us, really. You have to believe me." He lifted his hand, took off the watch, and threw it to the ground, then pulled off the ring. His fingers rubbed raw. "These were just for fun. They don't mean anything. Look," I threw them away. He clung desperately to my arm, just as I had when I saw him accompanying Christine to the gynecologist. Back then, I had clung to him tightly, thinking I could hold on to his heart that way. But he had frowned in disgust, pushed me away, and snapped. "Can you behave yourself in public?" Now the roles were reversed, and he was the one begging in despair. I coldly pried his hand off. "Behave yourself in public, mister."
Duan.
He stared at me in disbelief as I walked further away, but he didn't dare to follow. During the welcome dinner, Corin kept texting me, but I didn't look at a single message. Eventually he called, but I put my phone on silent and tucked it into my bag.
Betty asked.
"Is this okay?" I smiled calmly. "He doesn't matter. Let's not let him ruin our good mood." As I walked out of the private room, a figure leaning against the wall at the door brightened up. "Hanny, I'll take you home." I shook my head and kept walking. "No need. I have another event with my friends." Corin followed closely, his tone pleading, "Then send me the address. I'll come pick you up." I said nothing and walked out. On the way, I finally checked the messages he had sent earlier. There were more than a dozen. First asking when I'd be done so we could go home together. Then he asked if I had brought any hangover medicine and said he went out to buy some yogurt, asking if he could bring it to me. Finally, he said he was waiting at the door and that I'd see him when I came out. When we left the restaurant, Betty said goodbye, and Maxwell and I headed back to the orphanage. Chapter 9. That night, Maxwell and I stayed at the orphanage. Corin went crazy, sending me dozens of messages and making over 10 calls. I finally answered when I woke up. He sounded anxious, yet cautious. "Hanny, are you still not done?" At that moment there was a knock on the door, and Maxwell called me out for breakfast. Corin was silent for a moment, then spoke again.
His voice strained.
"Is it that man from yesterday?" I suddenly remembered that he had never met Maxwell. Yes, his voice trembled, and his breathing grew rapid. "Where are you?" "I'll come pick you up," I replied coldly, fabricating a lie at Betty's house. Corin hesitated briefly before speaking with difficulty. "I'm right outside Betty's house. She just left." I clicked my tongue in annoyance. "Are you out of your mind? Do I need to report my whereabouts to you?" He quickly explained, his tone still gentle. I worry about you. Honey, just tell me where you are, and I'll come get you." "The orphanage." He hesitated and asked where the orphanage was. My patience ran out, and I hung up. Somehow, he managed to find me. Just as I stepped out of the orphanage, Corin was already waiting at the entrance. His eyes warily watching Maxwell. Maxwell shrugged indifferently and walked towards his car. Corin eagerly opened the passenger door for me, but I glanced at it and chose to sit in the back. On the dashboard in front of the passenger seat was a black lace camisole. Corin's pupils contracted as he hastily threw it out of the car, stammering. "Chris borrowed my car to change clothes. We didn't do anything. Hanny." I closed my eyes and interrupted him. Stop talking. Hanny, I opened my eyes and said calmly, I genuinely feel a bit sick. His face turned pale instantly, and I added with satisfaction, I ate too much, and my stomach's upset. Let's go. He stood there, processing my words, unsure if I was being serious or not, before hesitantly getting into the car and starting the engine. Capitulo 10. When we got home, I went to the study to work overtime when I came out. Corin had already prepared 2 dishes and a soup. Corin's cooking skills are better than mine. In the past, what I looked forward to most was him cooking a meal for me on my birthday. But that never happened. Whenever I brought it up, he would impatiently say, You're an orphan, not some spoiled princess. Why do you need someone to cater to you? So pretentious. If you want to eat, cook for yourself. It's not like you can't take care of yourself. But Christine often posted pictures of the bento boxes he made with love. Once, he left a bento box on the table, and I thought it was for me. So I took it. That night, when we got home, he grabbed a handful of the uneaten bento and shoved it into my mouth. You really want to eat my cooking?
Eat it.
You look like a beggar.
Eat, eat, eat.
Why don't you just choke on it? Before he got home, I saw Christine's post on social media. Someone made me a bento with love, but it was stolen. So sad. Only then did I realize the bento was for Christine. Because of me, Christine was sad, and now he was punishing me for making her upset. That time, I was left with food smeared all over my face and hair. I cried as I washed it off. When I came out, Corin looked at me expectantly. Hanny, I made your favorite sweet and sour ribs and seafood soup. I walked to the table, and he eagerly handed me the chopsticks. I picked up a piece of rib and threw it on the floor, scoffing. Trying to feed a beggar? Eat it yourself. He stared at me in shock, as if he couldn't understand what I was doing. Then I took the pot of soup and poured it over his head. What is this? It smells awful. The scalding soup turned his face red, but he said nothing after doing all that. My food delivery arrived. I took it back to the study to eat, ignoring Corin as he cleaned up the mess. Before long, he came over and knocked on the door.
Hanny.
He was interrupted by the sound of Pikachu's ringtone. Christine was crying on the other end, saying something. After hanging up the phone, Corin explained through the door. Hanny, please wait for me at home. M.O. Christine is being troubled by a client. And it's related to company business. I need to go resolve it. I'll clean up the mess on the floor when I get back, and I'll bring you your favorite cheesecake. I responded perfunctorily, put on my headphones, and listened to Betty talking on the other side, waiting for a long time without receiving any other response from me. Corin finally hurriedly left, slamming the door behind him after confirming the travel itinerary with Betty. I grabbed the luggage I had already packed and headed straight to the airport, sending Corin a message on the way. The divorce agreement is on the coffee table. Please sign it as soon as possible. After nearly 10 hours of flight, I landed and received a few text messages. One from a colleague. Your husband came to the office looking for you. Didn't you tell him you took leave? Another from Maxwell. Corin came to find me, but I wasn't home. He probably misunderstood something. Just as I finished reading the messages, the orphanage called to inform me that Corin had searched the entire place yesterday, trying to find me, checking the call log. Corin had made over 20 calls. I didn't call back. Instead, I switched to a local SIM card and enjoyed a month of carefree fun. Here I was just myself, with friends by my side and beautiful scenery. I didn't have to worry about a man not coming home at night, didn't have to be heartbroken over his cold words, and didn't have to lose myself just to please him. I experienced an unprecedented sense of ease and happiness. A month later, I returned home, and the divorce agreement was still lying untouched on the coffee table. I unpacked my luggage, deleted Corin's fingerprint from the door lock, and changed the password. Even before returning, my application for further studies had been approved, and I was scheduled to leave for the UK in 3 months. Betty and Maxwell booked a restaurant to celebrate with me. But as soon as I arrived at the restaurant parking lot, I ran into Corin and Christine, who were also there for dinner. When I got home, I checked Corin's activities over the past month. After failing to find me, His social media became quite lively. One day he posted a picture of the tie I bought for him, saying it could tie a man's heart. The next day, he posted a photo of us from when we were dating, reminiscing about the promises we made. The day after, he shared a picture of a dish he cooked, saying his wife loved his culinary skills. Anyone who didn't know better might really think he was a loving husband who adored his family. When he saw me, his face darkened, and he walked over with big strides. I quickly dodged his attempt to grab my hand, skillfully moving behind Maxwell before Corin could say anything. Christine screamed, her face full of indignation. "Hannah, you really are a fickle woman. You're not even divorced yet, and you're already flirting with other men, going in and out with your lover." Corin was already glaring at us, and Christine's words made him furious. He swung his fist in a rage. "How dare you flirt with my wife? You bastard, there was no way I would let him hit my friend," so I quickly swung my bag at him. It landed heavily on his face, and he looked at me in disbelief. I coldly said, "Get lost." Corin's eyes instantly turned red, his face full of grievance and accusation. "Wife, are you hitting me for another man?" I sneered. "Yes. Is there a problem?" He stood there in a daze, clearly unable to understand why the woman who once cared for him the most, who loved him more than herself, was now humiliating him for someone else. Christine walked over, linking her arm with Corin's. Casting a triumphant glance at me, she then softly said to Corin, "Corin, let's go." "She doesn't appreciate you." "But Corin suddenly shoved her away forcefully. His eyes still locked onto me. "Wife, I know I made mistakes before. Please forgive me and come back home, okay? I'll cook for you every day, whatever you like. I'll make it for you." I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic laugh. In the past, if he had begged me so humbly, my heart would have ached for him, and I would have been eager to forgive him right away. But now, where does he get this confidence from? Does he really think that with just a beckon of his finger, I would come running back like a dog? "Corin, if you don't want me to take legal action, sign the divorce papers quickly. I'm sure you wouldn't want such a small matter to affect your image with that." I took Maxwell and Betty into the restaurant. Corin walked in with a grim face, and Christine hurried to follow him, but didn't dare to hold his hand again. They entered the private room next to ours, but the partition didn't block sound. Just as Betty raised her glass to wish me success in my studies, the sound of a glass shattering came from next door. Before I could say anything, I heard Corin yell, "Get out. Don't touch me." The waiter went in to check, but no one responded. Shortly after, the sound of hurried footsteps gradually faded away. Not even 10 minutes later, everything went completely silent next door. That night, Corin couldn't get in, and he pounded on the door furiously, shouting without any regard for his image. I called security and the police, and only then did things quiet down outside. However, the divorce papers still weren't sent to me, so I had my lawyer file a lawsuit. 3 months later, I went to the UK to attend a training course at the company's headquarters. A week later, I saw Corin downstairs at my residence, looking exhausted. It was drizzling, but he didn't have an umbrella standing there as the rain soaked his hair and clothes. Some colleagues felt sorry for him and asked me what to do. I calmly told them not to interfere and that whoever decided to help would have to take responsibility for him. I wanted no part of it. So, for the next week, everyone in the building saw Corin standing in the rain day after day until his face turned bright red and he collapsed on the ground. The team leader, unable to bear it any longer, finally sent him to the hospital. When he tried to pay for Corin's medical expenses, I stopped him in time and called Corin's parents. That wealthy couple arrived in the UK quickly, and when they saw me, their expressions were very unpleasant. They never liked me anyway. If it weren't for Corin insisting on marrying me, how could an orphan with no background and average qualifications ever marry into such a rich family? Corin and I didn't have a wedding besides a few of his friends and immediate family. No one knew we were married. It wasn't that I hadn't protested, but Corin held me close and explained. "My parents can't accept it right now. If we hold a wedding, they'll get angry, and that will only make their impression of you worse." I was completely focused on him and thought he was considering my feelings. But no ring either? Corin paused, then reassured me. When my parents accept it and we have the wedding, I'll personally put the ring on your finger. Won't that be even better? If I just buy you any ring now, I'd feel like I'm wronging you. I believed him, without hesitation. It wasn't until he and Christine wore matching rings that I realized how foolish I had been. Mrs. Duan walked over and took my hand. Hanny, I know you've been wrong these past few years, now that Corin has changed for the better. Please forgive him. Her eyes still held traces of disdain and dissatisfaction. Yet she humbled herself to persuade me, only to temporarily placate me and prevent me from hurting their precious son. I let out a soft laugh and pretended to agree. Only then did Mr. and Mrs. Duan leave the hospital, satisfied. I entered the hospital room alone. Corin was already awake, gazing at me with eager eyes. When you're well enough, go back home. Don't cause me any more trouble here. I turned to leave, but behind me, I heard a thud as Corin fell off the bed.
Honey.
His eyes were red, his face pale, and his voice was filled with pleading. Honey, I know I've made mistakes. Can you forgive me? I've already deleted Christine's contact information. She's no longer my employee either. Could you? I interrupted him, coldly saying, it's unnecessary. I had already known about this. On the third day in the UK, Betty sent me a video of Christine publicly accusing Corin of harassing her under the guise of his position, along with numerous pieces of evidence. The Duan family had filed a lawsuit against Christine, presenting evidence and accusing her of defamation and extortion. She had already been detained. This pair of despicable people was indeed a perfect match. I looked at him with indifference, feeling a wave of nausea in my stomach. Corin, whether or not there was Christine, you alone are enough to disgust me. He awkwardly sat up, leaning against the bed, his voice trembling. Hanny, I know you think I loved Christine, but I truly didn't.
Fine.
If you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you. He picked up the fruit knife from the bedside table and stabbed it into his chest. Blood quickly spread. Honey, I'm cutting out my heart to show you. His already pale face turned ghostly white, and beads of sweat as large as pearls dripped from his face onto the floor. He gasped for breath, moving slowly as he crawled on his knees toward me, grabbing onto my ankle. Honey, please. Have pity on me again. Didn't you love me? Honey, look, I've proven it. I stared coldly at him for a moment. Corin, it's a shame you didn't pursue acting. You've convinced even yourself with this performance, haven't you? The blood continued to flow, and I turned my head, calling loudly for the doctors. In the ensuing chaos, Mr. and Mrs. Duan rushed back, but they had no time to blame me. They were too anxious about their son. Corin was eventually saved weakly, he told his parents. If you dare to bully Hani, I'll stab myself again. I found it ridiculous and left the hospital. Mrs. Duan called me several times asking me to visit Corin in the hospital, but I decisively refused. A few days later, Corin appeared in front of my building wearing a hospital gown. When he saw me return, he stumbled after me, Hani. I walked straight ahead, pretending he didn't exist. He followed me into the elevator, but I left him outside when the doors closed. The next day, he showed up again. I called Mrs. Duan, and she hurried over to take him away. After 6 months of training, I returned to my country and was promoted to department manager. Betty and Maxwell prepared a big cake to celebrate at my home. Just as I finished cutting the cake, the doorbell rang. It's probably the delivery. I went to open the door, but standing there was Corin. He had lost a lot of weight during this time. Upon seeing me, he forced a smile. Hanny, I heard you got promoted. I'm here to congratulate you. Maxwell walked out and wrapped an arm around my shoulder.
Who is it?
Corin's face turned pale, as if he had suddenly lost his voice. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Can I come in to celebrate with you? Maxwell generously stepped aside.
Of course you can.
Mr. Duan, please come in. Corin's steps were unsteady as he took off his shoes, but he couldn't find the familiar pair of slippers. Maxwell handed him a pair of disposable slippers. Sorry, we don't have any extra slippers at home. Corin didn't stay long before leaving in a daze. Shortly after he left, he called me. Honey, I know. There's nothing between you and Maxwell. You're just angry with me. Cough, cough. I beep, beep, beep. The call abruptly ended and I glanced at my phone, puzzled, but didn't think much of it. About half an hour later, another call came in. Hello, this is the city's third hospital. Are you a relative of Mr. Corin? He's been in a car accident and is currently undergoing emergency treatment. Please come as soon as possible. The chaotic sounds of the emergency room on the other end brought back memories of this time last year, when Corin had left me on the ground to accompany Christine to the aquarium. After he left, I had severe abdominal pain, and the floor was covered in blood. While waiting for the ambulance, I called him, crying, begging him to come back, but he impatiently replied, "What can I do if I go back? I'm not a doctor." Why are you so melodramatic? Always crying. Stop bothering me. When I tried calling him again, I got the phone turned off message. After my surgery, I saw Christine's post, a picture of her and Corin standing by the jellyfish tank, their faces pressed close together. As the memory resurfaced, the doctor on the other end asked again. I smiled.
Sorry.
You've got the wrong number. I don't know the person you're talking about. After a long 10-month divorce battle, it finally ended. Corin, now a double amputee, sat in a wheelchair, gazing at me as if I were a treasure. But I was too busy celebrating with Betty, hugging her and cheering. Besides freeing myself from Corin, I also gained a significant amount of wealth. 5 years later, having been promoted to an executive position at the company's headquarters, I was traveling abroad. Betty called. Honey, Corin committed suicide this morning. I opened the news page and saw the Duan Group's obituary. After enduring long-term depression and physical pain, he passed away on social media. A trending video showed Christine just released from prison, live streaming while gloating. The bastard finally died. Ha, ha ha ha. Her laughter was abruptly cut off as she was hit and thrown across the street with her phone crashing to the ground. I turned off my phone and looked at the Skogafoss waterfall in front of me, feeling an immense sense of peace. These people no longer had anything to do with me.